Lydia Walter. Why East Coast Bowhunting Podcast?
Because neither one of us wear pink camo.
East Coast Bowhunting Podcast. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Look, man, I'm from Wisconsin. I listen to the East Coast Bowhunters because you don't get anything more real than these guys.
Because East Coast Bowhunting sets the standards for keeping its listeners informed on everything that matters in the hunting industry.
It's nice having somebody, local and represent the East Coast boys.
The East Coast is going to saddle up.
Number one source for slaying whitetails on the East Coast.
Well, you might see Jesus if you actually do something, it'll get you into heaven.
Why East Coast? Why not? I'm East Coast, baby. That's how we roll. Chew on that.
Come on the show, a stranger, and you feel like one of the boys when you leave.
Because I get my hunting camp anytime I want.
There's some absolute monsters roaming the East Coast, and I think it needs a little attention, so why not bring it to the East Coast Bowhunters Podcast?
Man, because East Coast is a tight-knit crew, and y'all like me. Raw, real, no bullshit.
Because you guys are hometown boys. I love you guys.
East Coast Bowhunting Podcast.
This is Kurt Geyer with Working Class Bowhunter, and East Coast Bowhunting Podcast is the only hunting podcast I'll tune into.
Bienvenido, and welcome back to Slayer Studio in Coventry, Connecticut, hiding in the mountains of God's heaven. This is the East Coast Bowhunting Podcast, here bringing you a special episode that is crucially important to any hunter out there that has any questions for every how-tos and don'ts while surviving the outdoors. We are joined by the one and only American survival expert, Tom McElroy, as he gives us the high-end lowdown to the great outdoors. This show is made possible by Shabeen Brewing. Shabeen, the hunter's beer. 100 Demons, East Coast hardcore music known worldwide. Trev's Euros for all your Euromount needs. Encore Targets, self-healing targets to self-heal your pockets. Meyer Trail Cameras, who's on your hit list? Outright Hunting, the Morph Pro is the last bow hanger you'll ever buy. Death Wish Coffee, fueled by death. Use promo code EastCoast10. Ethics Archery, it's like steroids for your arrows. Promo code EastCoast10. Tree Thrasher, imitate the wild. Promo code EastCoast15. Nor'easter Game Calls, get them in close. Get your ECB Blood Series now. Wild Edge Inc., the leader in mobile hunting. This show is driven by Scranton Motors, empowered by Scranton Power Sports. And this show is presented by Working Class Bowhunter. Not just a podcast, but the brand in the hunting industry. East Coast Bowhunting Podcast is here as always for the new and old hunters by sharing our experiences in the woods through playing and slaying. What's up?
What is up, D-Rock?
What's good, Trev?
What's good, brother?
Why don't you slide me that Shabeen over there real quick and wet my whistle? A little parched after all that talking. You know? let me sip this. That's tasty. I like that. That's good stuff. Can't get enough of it. Which one you sipping on over there?
I got that lavender one.
The lavender?
Yeah.
I'm allergic to that shit.
Yeah, I know.
Is that why you're sipping on, so I don't sneak it on you?
That's it.
No shit.
How about you?
I got that Irish cream ale. Oof. They broke it out for St. Patty's Day, and they just haven't finished all the logs. Banging. One more sip. That's good, man. Nice and smooth. So let's do a little catch-up. We were out there this morning. You woke up earlier than me,
Yeah. I had to go get after that left side.
Did you find it or no?
No.
The left side what?
The left side of that 5-drop that I found.
Oh, the shed.
Yeah, the shed.
Nice. That's a shame you couldn't find it. You went back to the spot over the ridge?
The spot over the ridge, through the woods, across the river.
Past that brook?
Yep.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. So we went to this, you took me to the shooting spot, little shooting range.
Yeah.
That's open to the public, and it's actually upkept. Actually, why don't you go into detail? You know more about it.
So it's Nile Homing, the state forest in Tolland, Connecticut. It's a field archery course. It's 15 targets. It's maintained by the Hall boys and also, Bill Hall. I think Gary helps a little bit, but but mostly Boy Scouts and the Department of Environmental Protection. Also, they go in and cut trees and so on and so forth. So I think my understanding is that I think a lot of it originated with Mark, Bill's father. I think he was a big asset to it and why this all started there. So it's just a free course. Anybody can go. I go there at least 2-3 days a week.
Especially lately. Why is that, though?
Because I've been shooting the trad bow.
Nice.
But
and we got the Coscob Trad Shoot coming up April 28th.
And it's just fun, man. It gets me all conditioned for the weekends. I was shooting 3Ds on Sundays and stuff like that. So I know it's fixed. It's marked yardage, but it's just really fun.
And I tested it with the rangefinder to see how accurate it was, and it's pretty on point, man.
Yeah.
It's pretty on point.
The nice thing is it has like the breakdown. So like say you go to stake number, say 10, and that's a 55-yard shot. It still has the breakdowns in front of it. It'll still go to 40, 32, 38. They don't have like weird denominations or whatever. Yeah, at each thing. So it's kind of cool.
Pretty cool.
It's a fun place.
It's nice how what I like about trad shooting that's what I learned on with the recurve in the beginning when I was a young lad. But it's nice to touch back because once you pick up that compound, it's like shooting a rifle straight up.
Yeah, it's definitely perfected my compound shooting as far as like being more aware of like where your elbow is, that you have a straight line, that you're dropping your shoulder. It definitely keeps me really thinking about it because there's a lot with the compound that a lot of people seem to get away from because
get away with,
right? And you can't get away with that with the trad bow.
Oh,
it's kind of it's like a
retuner
for me. Yeah.
Sorry about your shed.
Yeah, whatever. We're gonna get the fucking neighbors next time.
Yeah. Well, what he was getting into is traditional bow shooting. I recommend everyone starting from there, and if you started there and gotten away from it, definitely touch back. Especially if you've been having kind of, I don't know, not understanding why you think maybe your sight might be off or your shot may be off and not really knowing why. It's traditional bow shooting. It really works on your form, like Trev was saying. It makes you concentrate on that. But not only just that, even the breathing, down to the breathing and focus.
Yeah, that was definitely something that you were messing around with a lot and understanding on the exhale and so on and so forth, that calms your heart rate and so on and so forth. I mean, that's like a big sniper thing. But also as far as like, shooting with these guys on the weekend with like Caddy Cowboy, for example, and him have not been picking up a bow in a year or so since the crossbow laws, is that like he forgot what his form was and he was getting slouched with it or just doing small little things that we tried changing. Like he'd be
little bad habits, yeah.
Yeah, like he would, with his left hand, his bow arm, he would keep his hand open, but when he would go and he would grab it and he would snatch it, when he would snatch it, it would twist it to the right.
Yep.
So he would be shooting right or whatever. So then I told him to
take
take all
compound,
four.
that could be dangerous too.
Well, exactly. And I said to him, why don't you take your 4 fingers that are on the front and just touch them in the center, tip to tip to tip to tip on, the tips on your actual riser, and you just line them up in a line. And what that does is, if you are to squeeze, you squeeze in, so it pushes it into your palm. And instead of twerking your bow. Or twerking your bow.
Yeah,
twerking your bow.
You know how we get down in the dirty. Yeah. We even twerk our bows over there.
Our bows. But and it helped him throughout. It definitely made it more consistent for him. So, even just that little tiny thing, it's something that I try and stay aware of when I'm shooting my compound over my
it's really
recurve.
Cool. And then, hitting up with Bill Hall because we don't want to look like slouches at this trad shoot coming up at Coscob on April 28th. Because these guys, they're the real deal. They live and breathe it, and they even dream about it, traditional bow shooting. And some of their setups are pretty insane.
I know Pete was sending those pictures with the big tunnels. Remember seeing those with the big, big tubes? And you shoot through the tube to the...
Well, we'll be slaying that.
We're going to be blowing up some arrows.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel pretty confident, especially after shooting. Well, not after shooting in your backyard, but shooting at that spot was actually... It's very genuine.
I think one thing that we have a tough time getting away from at this point is that we're used to shooting the compound from 20 plus. And a lot of the trad shooting is...
20 below.
20 below.
But we were smacking 35, 40.
Understanding and finding That sweet spot. Ooh,
That's,
bean burp.
that's what I was getting at, is that fixed crawl style of shooting.
Yeah.
That's something really new to me because I taught myself, so I had my bad habits already established. So to start from a blank page was very refreshing and understanding a new method, and I like it better. This way you're aiming with the tip of your arrow versus like gap shooting. Even though with
instinctive.
Yeah, or instinctive. It seems to be more consistent. I may be wrong. I'm just telling you from my own opinion.
Right.
But yeah, even running the course and really finding our sweet spots. Like I learned today, my sweet spots are 35 and 22.
Right.
And then from there, you're kind of like, it's almost like gap shooting with fixed crawl, but you're adjusting your finger location versus anywhere else. So that's pretty cool. I'm liking it. So I don't know about you, but
Shabine, dude.
I'm excited, man. We have a really good episode. I haven't heard much on survival in the hunting industry, especially hunting podcasts. If you do get into it a bit, it's usually just touched on and danced around, but never elaborated. And I'm excited to get Tom McElroy on the phone because he is quite the man. He's kind of, I want to say, not necessarily disappeared, but I think a lot of people forgot about him. Because you ask around, hey, you know who Tom McElroy is? And they're like, oh, it sounds so familiar. It's because he used to be all over the TV. He was on Discovery Channel and et cetera, different platforms as well. You could definitely find him all over YouTube. But enough about me talking about him. Let's get him on the phone. What you say, Trev?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. We're back with Tom McElroy on the phone. How you doing, Tom?
Doing good.
Awesome.
Nice sunny day out here in California.
That's right. We had a good day out here in the East Coast. But
I'm glad to hear it.
Nice. Thanks, man. How's your day going so far? I mean, you're 4 hours behind, right?
Yeah, I'm 4, so it's, I'm 3 hours behind.
3 hours. Oh, okay.
So it's 2 o'clock here, 2:10 or something like that.
Cool. So let's kick it off right and start from the basics for our new listeners out there or people that might not know you or people living under a rock. Who are you? Where are you from? And where can we find you?
Right. So, Tom McElroy. I run survival programs throughout the world where I take people out into the woods. I show them, how to walk out without anything and survive off the land. And so that kind of stretches from anywhere throughout the U.S. to like Australia, Tonga. I'm headed to Tahiti in a couple weeks. A lot in Panama, Costa Rica, and then I do a lot on the East Coast too, is up in the New England area because I grew up there.
Sweet.
That's awesome.
East Coast in the house.
Mm-hmm. Woo, Connecticut.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And where can we find you as far as like social platforms or internet?
Yeah, so my website is Wild Survival Skills, and then probably the biggest social media thing that I've got is YouTube, where I put out these videos where I go out in the woods for a week and live off the land, just bringing in like a knife or machete and kind of show all the stages of like what's happening in real time, and kind of the problems I run into, the things I need to do to make sure that I've got shelter, water, fire, and food.
That's really cool, man. That's really cool.
Thanks.
And are you on, you said you're on Facebook. Are you on Instagram as well or no?
Yeah, I am. It's under Wild Survival Skills.
Sweet. So let's cut right into it, man. Who got you into the woods, and when you were in the woods, when did the survival aspects intrigue you?
It kind of, I grew up in a pretty woodsy town in Connecticut where it was there's just a ton of open space where you could just go and do whatever you wanted, and so. Right next to my house, IBM bought this huge chunk of land, and the town, Ridgefield, was a little too like uppity to allow them to have certain features, and so it got tied up in litigation. And for my entire childhood, nobody was allowed on this chunk of land, and so me and my buddy Nate would just run out there, and we just had it all to ourselves, and we could do whatever we wanted, and we'd cut down trees and make forts and bow and arrows, and probably do a lot of stuff that would be considered illegal, but at the time it was just no man's land. And there was one ranger that he would occasionally catch us. And I think I was his nemesis because he'd just see me out there and then we'd bail into the woods and stuff. But besides that, we just had this huge tract of land with a big lake. And so I got into that, but then really I just wanted to be a traveler and wanted to like hop boxcar trains around the country. That was like my big dream as a kid. And
that's hardcore.
From that point, it kind of turned me into survival, where I wanted to, like, if I was going to travel, I wanted to be able to like continue to like, you know, eat decent food and not have to like scrummage out of dumpsters and stuff. And so I got into survival, and then I just kind of fell in love with that, and it took off, and I pretty much dedicated the rest of my life to it.
That's pretty badass, man. That is so cool.
Yeah, that's what amazing.
It's been I never thought it would go this far. Obviously, nobody did. And then survival got really popular after Survivor came out in like 2000.
Yeah,
it's just grown and grown and grown since that. And something I always thought was just a little pet passion project kind of thing turned into be a career. So I'm pretty stoked that it worked out, because I don't know what the hell else I would do if it wasn't for this. There's no going back at this point. So
that's pretty badass that a rebellious East Coast individual like yourself, just kind of venturing out and exploring the world, stumbles across just your instincts and then blossomed into something else in a much bigger spectrum. And now all you're doing is helping others survive, basically, and showing them the quote unquote nitty gritty of the ins and outs of the great outdoors. That's pretty badass, man. I love it.
Thanks. Yeah, it feels really good, because it's like I'm not just doing something for the sake of selling it to somebody. Like, I truly believe in getting people out there, and that, re-educating people on the outdoors or reconnecting them to primitive survival skills is a great way to, just kind of introduce something to people that makes them more passionate about environmentalism and taking care of the planet and stuff. So
nice. So
yeah, it's good.
What did you go to school for, actually? We were talking a little bit before we hit the record button.
Yeah, I ended up getting a bachelor's degree. So after high school, I lived in the woods for a year. Then I taught survival at this big school for 5 years.
Whoa, wait a minute. You can't just say something like that and skip over
I figured we would get back to that.
Okay, you know what?
Trying to give you a little timeline here.
Okay, you're right. I'll follow your lead. Yeah. Go ahead. Don't let me interrupt. We'll hit that back.
Yeah. So after teaching survival for about 5 years, I was 25, and I never, right at the time, it was about 2002, and I didn't think survival was ever going to be something I could make a living at. And so I decided to go to college, and did anthropology for my undergrad, and then eventually got a master's working with tribal people throughout the world, focused on kind of like UN policy and laws that were written to protect tribal people and how they weren't working. But really all that was me traveling the world, living with tribes, practicing survival skills, and then talking to them for 10 minutes about like the UN or the problems they're facing with corporations that are kind of exploiting their land.
So you were,
but mostly for me, it was just a fun opportunity to go learn from tribal people.
That's very intriguing and very exquisite too, to find out that you're really kind of mingling with every type of aspect of the world.
Yeah, it really is. I've always had that travel bug, like I was saying. So getting out there and getting to the fringes of places that people don't go is super cool for me. But I always kind of had the second thing in my head of like, well, I might as well get a master's while I'm doing this, because this could all fall apart at any second. There's interest in survival, and I better have a degree on top of it. That's
a smart approach. I would have to agree.
And who better to learn from the people that live off the land every day of their lives?
Exactly.
That's kind of what I think is like, it's hilarious to me when, the amount of people I see that say they're the best survivalist out there or whatever, like the best survivalist out there is clearly the indigenous people that are living that way, and they've been doing so for 50,000 years. It's just a joke to see people on TV claiming how good they are when, they don't hold a candle to a 10-year-old out in the middle of the Amazon, So I figured if I was going to learn from somebody, it should be the best, and it should be the people that just do this on a daily basis.
That definitely is the best. There's no questions about it.
No question, right? And there's millions of tribal people out there that are 1,000 times better than anybody you've ever seen on TV.
So let's backtrack a second before we dive into that, because I have a ton of questions in that realm. Is that this year of living in the woods, is that what drove you to be a survival coach?
Yeah, it kind of was. You know, I left high school and studied survival for about a year, and that was back in the mid-'90s. And there was only one place, pretty much in the world, there was only one real big place where you could go study this stuff, and it was, lo and behold, was in southern New Jersey.
Shit.
And this very famous guy, Tom Brown, who before Bear Grylls or any of those guys, like, he was the guy.
Nice.
And so I studied from him, and then with two guys, we were very inspired, and we're like, let's just do this. Like, let's not be the people that are just sitting here studying this. Let's go live in the woods for a year. And so we got together and moved into the Pine Barrens, and it was about 10 miles out. Built our shelters from sticks and leaves, rubbed sticks together to make fires, drank from the local spring, hunted and fished and set traps for food and gathered acorns and stuff like that. And we ended up making it some of us made it the entire year. But yeah, I made it from spring to spring, from spring of 95 to spring of 96.
Damn, I was in high school then. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking, Tom?
No. So now I'm 42.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we're not too far apart.
Okay. Yeah, getting up there, man. It's not feeling it yet. Thank God.
That's a good thing.
I
man.
still feel like I'm 20 years old, running around the woods.
Yeah, you wear it well, man. You're doing good. You're ahead of the game.
Stress-free lifestyle.
Yeah, the Cali life, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So let's jump back forward to what we were talking about, the indigenous people, and where have you traveled so far, or what sticks out the most right now, actually?
Probably. I think to me, what felt like the most remote out and out there was out in the Amazon. I stayed with a tribe called the Warani for a while, and they were still very much like hunter-gatherers. They would be these monster guys, just huge, muscly guys, and they would run out with a big, long spear, like a 10-foot long spear they had carved. And, they go out like 30 miles, find a pig, chase it down, spear it. It's like a 150, 200-pound pig, strap it to their back, and carry it back with them with the, they basically tie the front leg to the back leg on both sides and wear it like a backpack. Jeez. Which I'm guessing is how maybe the term piggyback came around.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I'm not positive about that, but it seemed like it clicked.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And so these guys were just warriors. I mean, they were just fierce and just incredible hunters. Like the stuff that they could do as far as like spearing blow gunning these tiny little birds out of the tree from 300 feet away, and they just shoot them and they drop to the ground, and you're like, how in the hell? So it was just incredible to even get a glimpse of like what's possible.
That's cool.
But other areas have been like Copper Canyon in Mexico, with a tribe that's been hiding out at the bottom of this canyon for basically since the conquistadors, and they're still down there like living in caves and adobe huts, and just amazing. And then the Aborigines in Australia, like hunting with them was insane. And all over Indonesia, I lived with a shaman on an island out there for a while. So yeah, it's just all exploration for me. It's all just getting out there and trying to find the most remote places I can get to.
So when you rest your eyes and close your eyes for the night, you must wake up remembering the wildest dreams. I can only imagine. It's like, who needs drugs when you've traveled the world and experienced all that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it sometimes, where you just, when you wake up when you're traveling a lot, you don't remember where you are. And
yeah,
sometimes I'm like, where am I? Am I on the floor of a tribal hut, or am I in my bedroom? Or, and it kind of becomes a very, confusing after a while of like, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but you lose a little bit of a grip on reality sometimes when you bounce around that much.
Yeah, a bit euphoric. Yeah, I totally get it, man, for sure. So what do you think in your eyes is probably the craziest or like scariest encounter that you've had in your travels, just surviving? Just to try to humble you down a little bit and make you a bit human on our level.
Well, I mean, it's like, it's always gone I mean, there's definitely times where like shit hits the fan and you're just like, oh, how am I going to get out of this? But it always seems to work out decently well. But I was just in Tonga and I was way out in the middle of nowhere with no medicine at all, and I'm allergic to bees, and I got stung by a bee, and like I made a video of just being like, hey, if anybody finds me, I just got stung by a bee and my throat might swell up, and this is why my body's in the middle of this field. And I, eventually deleted it because my body didn't react, which was great. But I think more interesting stories would be like in the Amazon, there's an undiscovered tribe next to the Warani called the Taigiri. And this whole area, the Warani and Taigiri, were known as the most homicidal culture ever recorded up until the 70s. And they were 60% homicide rate.
Holy shit.
So 60% of people in the tribe died from murder.
Jesus.
And so the Taigiri split off when people started coming in from the outside. And they want nothing to do with it. And they still, if you wander into their land, they still spear you, and people are still found speared by the Taigiri. And so I was walking through the jungle with this guy, Nanto. I asked to take me hunting and show me how to blowgun. He was the guy blowgunning birds out of the trees. And we came upon, it's a weird story, we came upon these leopard claw marks in the tree. And he stopped, and he's kind of got a little spooked. And he told me, he was just talking to the medicine man or the shaman in their tribe, and the shaman had told him if he sees signs of leopards that he is in danger and he needs to, be careful. So he tells me the story, and I'm like, oh yeah, whatever, let's keep going. And we keep going, and we come across these two primitively made spears in an X across the trail that we were walking. And basically that's the sign of the Taigiri that says, hey, we see you, we know you're here, and if you take a step past this, we're gonna kill you. So they do have a warning sign for the Warani to be like, you guys are entering.
Well, at least they give you a warning.
Yeah, so just sitting there being like, I know they're watching me, I know they're right there somewhere, I can't see them.
Right.
But so anyway, at that point we just turned and bailed, and it was the sketchy jog back home.
That's a scary thing.
That's intense.
I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, it's not like you're going to call 911 or anything like that.
I was surprisingly calm. I don't know, maybe just because I didn't understand the culture as much, but Nanto was like, he was pretty shook up, and so I was like, dang, if this guy's shook up, that means something's dangerous. But I think the reality of it didn't set in for me at the time. I was just like, okay, time to go. Yeah. And so looking back on it, once we got back to the thing and everybody was kind of spooked by it, I was like, oh, wow, that was a big deal.
I think it's such a crazy thing because it's not like you can, like myself, being very ignorant to the whole different tribes and this, that, and the other thing is like.
You mean outside of Connecticut?
Yeah. You can't,
Hey, there's some pretty scary
that's
groups out there,
crazy
too.
to me. It's just mind-blowing, It's not like, if you ran into a problem in the woods here when you were hunting or whatever, you just, call the DNR or whatever, but
exactly.
Who are you going to call? You're not going to call anybody. You're not going to.
That's the thing. Is I don't even have a sat phone, or
right.
Even just the bee sting situation where I'm like, how stupid! After all these years, I didn't bring antihistamines with me.
I know.
I just forgot, and it's just like, oh, I'm just going for a casual thing, and all of a sudden I'm stuck there, and I'm like, I have no way to call for rescue if my throat starts swelling, and so.
And
there's definitely ways to plan for those, but a lot of times you just shrug your shoulders and hope you make it out.
So I actually have a on-the-fly question on that. Now knowing that, going back, how would you have handled that if it did go for the worse? Now looking back,
the one in the Amazon,
the bee sting, yeah.
Oh, the bee sting,
yeah.
There was nothing I could have done. I mean, there's if I had an allergic reaction, the best thing I could do is just try to calm down a lot. But there's no natural medicine that was going to cure it on the fly
if it was
in a strange country. And yeah, I would have tried to run for help, but I was, there's no chance. It just would have gone bad. And that's when I decided, I better leave a little video for people in case something, somebody finds me, at least they understand what happened.
Right. Right. So Mother Nature was forgiving that night. She showed some mercy.
Yeah, it's only a reaction I've had from certain bee stings, and I don't know which bee it is, but it's been in different areas of the world that I've had the reaction, and luckily had medicine. So yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's just at that point you just oh well, it's been a fun life, and this is a stupid way to die, but I guess that's how it's going to happen.
I've been through all this and a bee killed me.
Yeah, right?
I know, exactly, right? Like, I run from a hostile tribe, but a bee is the one that takes me down.
Wow.
You're potentially confronted by Targaryens, and a bee is going to take you down. It's like, oh my God.
Targaryens. It's none of the Game of Thrones.
I think it's all these things that we take for granted.
GLT's almost back. That's
I'm very excited about that.
Me too. I'm a nerd too, man.
I've only ever binge watched it because I didn't get into it for the longest time. And then, yeah, I finally got into it, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm just going to wait and binge watch it after.
Yeah. It's got a little bit of everything in that miniseries for just about every viewer. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Actually, so that one school I taught at, the guy that plays Jon Snow, I can't remember his name, but apparently he's super into survival stuff, and he eventually took a bunch of classes there.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice. Random fun fact.
Right.
So let's get a little off bases a little bit and kind of take a chill pill. What's your poison of choice? Everyone's got their poison of choice. You sipping on beer, whiskey, wine. What do you prefer?
I not that much, like honestly, like Miller Lite, maybe.
That's cool.
Because anything else, like I have 2 IPAs and I'm done for. But Miller Lite, I can drink that all day long, and I wake up and I feel good, and my skin looks good, and I'm ready to. I'm probably more hydrated than if I didn't drink. So, yeah, I think as I get older, I'm just becoming a super lightweight. So,
hey, nothing wrong with that, man.
The occasional Tecate, I guess.
There you go. You're a cheaper date that way. It's cool. I'll take you out sometime.
Yeah, that's another thing. My bar bill comes to about $6.
Yeah, that's always handy. So what I was leading to with that question is, when in your travels, especially dealing with all these medicine men and shamans, did you ever experience anything like that in that realm?
Yeah, not. I can tell you a little bit, but there's this one time I was with a tribe called the Shuar in Ecuador, and I was staying with the shaman there, and he had offered to take me out to these 4 sacred waterfalls of his people. I know it totally sounds like some bullshit story, but it's true.
No, I believe it.
And at the time, I had gone out there with this guy that I was studying Spanish with, and so he was kind of my translator, because at the time my Spanish was awful.
Nice, habla español.
And so we go for a long hike. We stop at the first waterfall, and my translator guy's like, "Hey man, I'm not in shape for this at all. I can't do this." He's like, "I'm just going to wait here, and I'll see you guys when you get back." And I was like, "All right." So we take off into the jungle for a long time and see all these waterfalls, and we circle back, and this 65-year-old medicine man is so far ahead of me. He's clearing the trail, and I can't even keep up. And I'm pretty proud of the way I can move in the woods. And I mean, this guy was blowing me away. And so trailing behind, and I'm walking along this hillside and slip on the ground and just fall, and everything goes flying out of my pockets, just yard sale all over the jungle. And I'm picking up everything, and finally catch up to this medicine man guy, and he's talking to the Spanish translator he ran into. And anyway, long story. He shows him this plant, and he tells us a story that this plant will make you trip out. And it's given to the young kids in the tribe to make them hard workers, because you basically trip off to the edge of the universe for 3 days.
Oh,
and then you come back, and when you come back, you're like a ridiculously hard worker.
Damn. What's the name of this plant?
I have no idea. I have a picture of it, but I mean, the only name was in his tribal dialect, so I have no idea what it is.
Damn.
But he compared it. He said it was similar to ayahuasca, but stronger.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
He had offered. He said, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And I was like thinking about, God, I could do this, and I don't even know this guy that well, and I could be 4 days deep into the jungle when I finally snap back to reality, and I have no idea where I am. And I just saw that it probably wasn't that feasible to take it in that moment, and so I said no.
At least you pondered the thought, though. I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, if it was in a more safe situation, I would be good, but I'm sure I would walk off a cliff or something, so it just seemed like a stupid idea. But it was funny after that, he's like, I saw you in a vision before you came here, and he said, I'm really glad you didn't fall between the what I heard was him saying, I'm really glad you didn't fall at the fourth waterfall, because if you had, it would have meant you were going to die in this like super fiery death.
Oh, damn.
And I was like, nope, I didn't fall at the fourth waterfall. We're all good. And so I was like, oh, I'm in the clear. We get back to my Spanish translator's house days later, and he's telling his wife about this story. And he says, yeah, if Tom had fallen between the fourth and the first waterfall, it would have meant he was going to die in this fiery death. And I said, no, he meant the fourth waterfall only. My translator was like, no, he said between the first and the fourth. And I'm like, well, I totally fell at the first waterfall on our way back and like spilled down the hillside. And so anyway, I think he had said within 3 months. So my friends had this huge countdown over 3 months waiting to see if I was going to, end up in some cataclysmic accident. And that didn't happen either. So I guess he was wrong.
Thank God. Shabine.
Crack a Shabine to that one.
Thank you.
I think I told you this when we chatted on the phone the other day. We're sponsored by Shabine Brewing. So when you do hear beers crack, we're cracking Shabine beers.
It sounds good. I wish I was out there to have one with you guys.
You know what? I'll make it happen. I'll send some out to you. That's no problem. I've been known to do that. So
great. Can't wait.
This way, bring a little East Coast out to the West Coast for you.
Can't wait.
All right, so let's. That was actually a really cool story, and it's very interesting. Only because I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to follow the same route as you and take the same approach, but are maybe a little tentative. So at least by you sharing your experiences, it could kind of shed some light on what to expect or what they can brace themselves for. So this way, it gives them a better painted picture of what to expect in the sense of what they're going to have to kind of tie their belts to,
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things I like about things like, how do I put this? I really like showing people that you can do. There's still some seriously crazy things out there that you can do and places to explore that haven't been mapped by Google Maps. And it really just takes like buying a plane ticket and trying to figure it out as you go and kind of putting aside the fears that talk you out of doing things like that. I hate to recommend it because I'd hate to get a call from somebody being like, yeah, they actually did die from a bee sting while they took your advice. But, I like to inspire people to be like, I can do something completely off the map of what other people are doing and, live a different lifestyle.
So I got a question, like, how do you go about, like, hooking up with these tribes and so on and so forth? Like, that can't be an easy task.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just luck, like dumb luck. I really have some superpower of dumb luck. But with the ones in the Amazon, like, as an example, I just flew down there. I had no idea what I was doing. I just bought a ticket and I arranged to stay with a family to study Spanish near, like, right on the edge of the Ecuadorian Amazon. And I figured, like, well, I'll study Spanish for 2 weeks and then maybe try to talk to people about how to get deep into the jungles and find some tribes. And I on his property, I ran into this priest that was staying there. And he told me, back in the 70s, I stayed with this crazy hunter-gatherer tribe way deep in the Amazon that was still very, very traditional. And I said, like, oh, this is perfect. Like, how do I do this? How do I get in there? And he said, no, there's only one pilot that'll drop anybody off there. And he's a missionary pilot. And he only takes missionaries or tribal people to go do it. And he wouldn't tell me his name or anything. So I get online, I find his name, I find his everything, call him up, and basically pretended I was a Christian missionary and talked him into
fake it till you make it.
Which, I mean, I grew up religious, and so I kind of could talk the talk.
Amen.
And basically talked him into it, and he was like, "Great, I'll take you." And we fly over the jungle for hours, and this little grass airstrip pops out of nowhere, and by the time he got to talking to me, he kind of sensed that I wasn't exactly what I was saying I was. And he called me on it, and he just said, "You're not really a missionary, are you?" And I said, "No, not really." He said, "That's all right. I really think God wants you here anyway." And I said, "Yeah, me too." And landed the plane, talked to the chief, checked my bags out of the plane, and said goodbye.
That's nuts, man.
That's crazy. That's like, it's mind blowing to me. Like, you're just meant to be there when you go there. Like, it's just like,
it's either like that or he's got the biggest set in the world.
Yeah, well, I was going there too. I was about to go there.
And I think sometimes feeling that you've got somebody looking out for you in that way, like, helps you just to kind of be like, "Oh, I'm taken care of." I mean, it's never true, you know. It's people die all the time doing stupid stuff like that, but yeah, just kind of going for it and hoping for the best is a lot of what works out. But I think almost in that situation, people want to help you out because they realize that you're pushing the limits a little bit, and they're like, "This guy's cool. Like, he's definitely trying to do something bigger than the norm." And
or a pinche gringo.
I think it's crazy because, like, I know people that will go in the bar and they're afraid to talk to other people, and you're going to other, like, tribes and trying to talk to the chief
different
about
cultures,
potentially staying with them. Like,
well, the funny thing is, I'm also that person that probably goes into the bars and afraid to talk to people. Yeah. So somehow I don't mind flying into the jungle in a near-death situation and figuring it out. Rather
we'll
than like going to a party and trying to socialize with people.
That's what I'm saying. That's like, that's to a whole different level. You're just walking up to this person's home and be like, "Yeah, I'm going to crash with you for maybe 2 weeks, maybe a couple months."
Yeah.
Just show me the ropes.
You barely speak the same language either, you know? So it's awkward. I mean, there's definitely moments of like, "Oh God, what am I doing here?" And like, I don't know what they're saying. They don't know what I'm saying. I guess I'm just going to like force it and just live with this guy until we figure out a way to communicate.
So, you know, now that we're on that subject, why don't you break it down to us? What would be your first step to, let's just say, okay, let's take the woods, for example, like that scenario. What would be your first step to overall survival there?
The basic order that like every survival instructor will tell you is just your order of operations. There's 4 things you need on the planet to survive. So you gotta have shelter, water, fire, and food. And so in the list of priorities of like what's going to kill you first, most of the time exposure is the thing that kills people. And so making some sort of shelter that keeps you warm and dry is always number 1 on your list.
And you made an awesome video on just that. Something very, very, very basic too. But please continue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as basic goes, like the advanced shelters is really fun to do, but it's just not realistic for survival situations. So the more basic, the more simple you can make something, the better. And so just a pile of leaves really is one of the best shelters you can make when you're lost in the woods and need to stay warm and dry. But yeah, from there we go on to purifying water by boiling it and making sure you kill all the bacteria. There's various methods of doing that. Go on to making a fire so you can boil your water, cook your food, have light, which we do by rubbing sticks together in one of 20 different methods that you can do primitively. And then food is the big one. Food's the one that you don't need for a long time, but it's the one that really, it's not hard within a day to check off shelter, water, and fire. And then all you have to do for the rest of the survival situation is find food. And so we either teach trapping, hunting, edible and medicinal plants are really important. And yeah, and then that's it. Just do that for the rest of the time you're out there and you'll be fine.
Nice.
He says it so easily. like it's no big deal. You'll be fine.
It's in a way, it's nice to think about, like, you know, in modern life, we think about a million things we need in order to survive. And you're always worried about, like, how are you going to get this and how are you going to get that? But it's great when I take people out in these expeditions where we get shelter, water, fire the very first day. And then people look at me and they go, "What do? We got 4 or 5 more days of this." I go, "All we got to do for 5 days is get calories." And it's cool because it's like, okay, like I'm one track mind at this point. I've got one goal, and that's putting calories into my system. And it just makes life really simple in a way to like break it down to that of like, I know exactly what I need to do, and I'm just going to do that all day long.
So can you take us through one full first day of accomplishing that goal?
Yeah, it always depends where you're at, of course, but it's basically deciding that you're lost, finding the right location to find all the shelter materials you need. I think that's crucial, as I see people all the time, like, stop exactly where they're at and try to make a shelter, but there's no sticks, there's no leaves, there's no bark, there's nothing that you can build a shelter out of easily. And so I tell people, like, spending the extra half an hour to an hour finding the perfect location is much more worth it than dropping where you're at and building a shelter. And so, yeah, get the shelter going. And then if I only get that done the first day, like, if it's going to be cold in the New England area, I'll spend all day long until I can't see any more collecting leaves and just piling leaves on top of a stick frame. Because I see people all the time just slack. They put, a foot of leaves on top of themselves and expect it's going to keep them warm like a sleeping bag would. And it's really like, you just have to go nuts and make the huge pile of leaves crawl inside of it, and that's going to work. And so if you can do that, you're going to survive at least 4 or 5 days. And after that, you find water, which isn't hard in New England, of course. And then you're going to survive a month, and so it really, in a way, it isn't that hard. I mean, I know it takes a while, but shelter and water, I could teach that to you in 10 minutes and you could succeed at doing it. It's really when you get into fire and food that it gets tricky.
And what on a normal basis in New England, what is your primary source of calories that comes readily available?
Yeah, really. I mean, most of the time it's edible plants. Your diet in the survival situation's going to be probably 90% edible plants. As you get better and you establish yourself and you're able to, like, make a bow and arrow and you can take down a deer or something bigger, then yeah, you're going to be adding meat into your system a lot more. But survival situation, like, you're mostly catching, like, small rodents, maybe squirrels, and then pounding, like, plants like cattail is really abundant.
Really?
No part of it is poisonous.
Really?
It gives you a ton of starches. Acorns are fantastic. You just have to leach out the tannic acid inside of them, and then they're, lots of protein, lots of fats, grass seeds, pine bark, random things like that. But really, edible plants are your savior, where if you know your plants, you're going to be able to go find something that you're going to be able to eat.
So is it safe to say, if you're going to venture out in a survival aspect scenario, definitely catch up on learning your plants first and foremost, as far as calories go?
Yeah, absolutely. The more you know the area you're going to be, like, the more you know it intimately and you know every plant and what it's good for, that's when survival becomes just like going to the grocery store, because where I grew up in Connecticut, like, I know everything out there that
it's so abundant.
Survival really out there is just like, oh, hey, I'm just, walking down the grocery aisle and being like, oh, there's some cattail, there's some ramps, there's some, garlic mustard, which is everywhere.
Fiddleheads, mushrooms,
Exactly. And so it's just picking out a monster's amount of food just from the forest. And so yeah, knowing your plants is great, but the problem is, survival wise, that's the one thing. If you end up in a plane crash in Argentina, you're not going to know your plants. And
exactly.
At that point, you might just have to rely only on hunting and trapping.
So to flip it around, what if you were stuck in the desert? What would be your first and foremost approach there? Probably water, you think?
In a way, yes, but you want to find shelter because you're trying to keep the water that's in your system. And so in order to keep yourself from sweating out all of the water that's in your system, you need to find a shelter to keep yourself from sitting out at noon in the middle of the day, getting beat on by the sun. And so even if it's a rock overhang or something, that's considered shelter.
Nice.
Because basically in the desert, you want to do all your active work
at night,
in the morning and evening, never in the middle of the day. And so in the middle of the day, you just chill out inside some sort of rock overhang or some sort of brush shelter that you've made.
What was the most challenging survival scenario that you were in as far as landscape goes?
I would probably say I was in Argentina, in the mountains in Argentina, for a while, and it was just a plot of land that was really, there wasn't anything on it. There wasn't too much for edible plants. There was very little to no, not even like mice and rodents and things like that. And it was raining the whole time, and it was very cold and stuff like that. So cold situations, I think, are the toughest because you're constantly, if you don't have appropriate clothing, you're constantly shivering, your firewood's constantly soaked. And so you're just keeping up with like firewood alone, and you're spending half the day making sure that you've got dry firewood stashed away somewhere. And then, yeah, it really limits things in cold situations. So.
Yeah, I can only imagine, man. I can only imagine. Yeah. So, out of this whole venture that you like fully indulged and kind of dove in head first, arms back, what exposure have you gained from this? I mean, you've been on a couple different channel platforms and a couple shows, and especially with YouTube and stuff. And as far as exposure, what doors have opened up for you in that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what it leads to. You know, it's yeah. I mean, you just would never have thought back when I first started this stuff that anybody gave a shit, because nobody did.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, amazing things were, you know, working with Hollywood movies, or, you know, being on TV a couple times. I've done, you know, big museum displays, traveled the world, you know, to film different things, and, you know, working with people high up in government or Navy SEALs, or, you know, it's just very diverse. And then working with some homeless guy that, you know, scraped together enough money to come take a class because he wants to be a hobo and hop boxcar trains. And so I love the diversity of it all. It's like you never really you don't know who you're going to get. You know, sometimes you get the prepper that thinks the world's going to end in 3 days, with the hippie that just wants to learn, you know, how to make herbal potions that they can, you know, be healthier with. So right. It's great in the fact that it draws in a huge crowd of people.
That's awesome. Hey, Tom, I apologize in the background. You hear a leaf blower. We're trying to like catch you at your time over there, and the neighbors over here with a leaf blower going crazy. Sounds like one of those hand dryers at the bathroom or something.
I don't know if you can hear it or not.
I can't actually hear it, so the filter's working. But yeah, I get that all the time where I'll like film something, and the second I start talking is when the airplane flies overhead or something. God,
it's like, what is that noise? Yeah, that's funny. So you the one thing that I think is what do you think, in your opinion, actually, what put you on the map, you think, as far as exposure, aside from the obvious survival, but like exposure to media? What do you think put you on the map?
For media, this is YouTube. You know, I get these offers from TV shows all the time, and it's always, I say like, hey, I don't want to do anything dramatic. I don't want some soap opera survival show. And no, we're not going to do that. And then we get talking, and all of a sudden they say, well, we talked to Discovery Channel and they really want it to be more dramatic.
You did do Naked and Afraid before, right?
Yeah, I did.
Nice.
And so in a way to kind of combat what's being put out there on TV, I developed my YouTube channel to show like, hey, this doesn't have to be a situation where, you know, you're suffering. It doesn't have to be a situation where you're fighting with somebody. You can go out in the woods and do survival and, you know, have an amazing time. And I think it's important because that's really, you know, I lived in the woods for a year when I was younger, and it showed me how incredible that lifestyle can be. And unfortunately, my gripe with TV is that they're really like bastardizing a really cool experience.
Yeah.
And making it out to be either your Bear Grylls, like hyperbolic, like, oh, here we are, we're going to die with our rusty pocket knife on a glacier.
And I'll drink my own piss.
Or a bunch of people like fighting on TV because they can't get along and not doing any survival. And so I kind of put it out in the idea of like, I want to combat this idea that people are kind of corrupting what was a really cool thing for me throughout my entire life, and not letting them get their paws on it all and make it all seem out to be this miserable experience.
That's cool, man. That's cool how you stay to your roots, so to speak, and still, I hate to relate it to this, but I mean that's keeping it East Coast, you know. I mean, I
hear you. You get to the California, LA crowd, and it's no matter how much they swear it's going to be one way, it always turns back into something dramatic and ridiculous. And I mean, the ideas I've been pitched are just beyond ridiculous.
Right. And in the East Coast, I mean, what you see is what you get, you know? I mean, it's to some people, they can't even take it. It's just so blunt and straightforward. It's almost cruel.
Yeah, I love the realness, the honesty of it all. And, you know, California people, everybody's ridiculously nice, which is cool. But I do miss, in some ways, the East Coast is where
the vulgarity of
not
it.
everybody's nice, but if they're pissed at you, they're going to tell you, you know, and there's something refreshing in that. Is like, you know, somebody's really your friend if they can curse you out occasionally.
Yeah, I can dig that. So, who was your idol then versus who you look up to now, would you say?
So yeah, back then for sure, growing up, this guy, Tom Brown Jr., was the big survival guy back then. And he wrote a bunch of books on his life being brought up by this Apache Indian. And so ever since I was, I think about 14 years old, I got into his books, and that's what really inspired me to be into survival. And kind of basically what I'm doing is living out somewhat of the life that he lived. And so he was probably my biggest inspiration for, 10 years or something like that. I pretty much just wanted to learn everything he knew and read all of his books and stuff. Now, God, it's so hard to say.
Good question, right?
Who's a big, I think of it occasionally and somebody pops in my head. I'm like, oh, that's a good answer. But I honestly, I'm inspired by tons of people, but I can't say there's any main person that I'm looking up to in the world and think they're amazing.
Well, is there like a certain, maybe well-known individual now that kind of pops in your head, like first thought? Or even a culture that you might look up to?
Well, sure. I mean, the tribes that I go visit, like those guys are just, they're fighting against this mass globalization that's heading around them, and they're really trying to keep their roots alive. And that's ridiculously inspiring to me, is that, these are the last people on the planet. They're hanging on to the knowledge that I'm trying to pass down.
Yeah.
There's
something
and, from what we know as Westerners, we know a fraction of what they know. And so these people have been holding down a oral tradition and a culture that they're trying to preserve from 50,000 years ago and keep growing it and keep it alive in the modern world. And so, I really feel for them, and I think I'm really inspired to help try to protect them, or at least enlighten people as to where all the survival knowledge comes from. Is from these groups of people that are fighting to survive against all odds of like companies coming in and exploiting their land and poisoning their rivers and everything else. So, it's incredible what those people are doing.
And it's pretty crazy the day and age that we live in now. It's like we as conservationists, because in essence that's who you are and what you're a part of as well, is we have to combat people that don't want us to, in essence, kill stuff, in means of survival and using the means of it. And it's just crazy because if you take away technology, you take away as simple as electricity, what would they do then? You take away supermarkets. What are you going to do?
Exactly.
They really depend on people like us to survive. So it's ridiculous. And that's why I bring that up with the looking up to those cultures, is they're the true conservationists that we should take suit or follow suit. And it to me, it's just weird how times evolved even to the simple fact that you can't even discipline your child the old ways. And I don't mean by striking or anything like that, but you can't be stern enough, because then, they could go as far as just calling the cops, and then all of a sudden, families are split. It's just too extreme now. Whereas before it was more simplistic.
I think that you going and being with the tribes brings it back, kind of like just listening to your stories and stuff on like how crazy it is that these people live their lives day in and day out, or the things that started here in this country, and now everything has changed.
Yeah.
And then just bringing it back to
so rapidly. And it's one of the things I notice is like there is, I think part of people that when they get more removed from that lifestyle, the more they come up with, psychological issues, or they just don't feel right. They feel like there's something missing in their lives. And I really honestly believe that, it seems like common sense to me that we've spent 100,000 years developing instincts to be hunter-gatherers and to be out in nature and to be, making bow and arrows and flint knapping arrowheads and hunting deer and all these other things that we do in my classes. And within 200, 300 years, we've completely wiped that out. And I think our instincts still crave it. They still feel that it's part of who we are. And, modern people don't know how to have that outlet, and so people come to my classes and they start learning how to make arrowheads out of stone or, tan a deer skin. And they go, dang, this feels so right. Like, this feels like something I just want to do all the time. And I think it's part of that is that instinctual craving that they're missing out on.
It's I have to agree 100% because that's something our good buddy Garrett Benner, the modern assassin, says is you are primal. And that's part of who he is because in our world today, he might seem like an extremist and kind of up in your... And he's out of Maryland, so he's East Coast too. And he's a little too much for a lot of people, but in all essence, he's actually, in our eyes, like Trev, in our eyes, he's normal. He's like one of us.
Right, and 300 years ago or even 100 years ago, that would have been completely normal.
Yeah, if anything, he might even be a pansy because there's so many savages out there.
Exactly.
It's like, no offense, Garrett. No offense.
Like, you're a little soft.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, I mean, I think back to, like, how tough people were. Like, you read the endurance or stories of people getting trapped in different areas back in the 1800s. I'm like, oh, well, I guess we're going to live here for the next year and a half in Antarctica. And it's like, God, I'd be pissing my pants if I ended up in that situation. And so anytime I go into a hard situation, I just remember some of these stories of guys from 200 years ago. And I'm like, man, this is nothing compared to what they went through.
Oh, man.
If we lost power, food, and all of that, what would people actually physically do in the modern age? I mean, they would be lost.
It'd be a good way of population control, that's for sure.
I mean, that's the scary thought is, I mean, we're only a couple days from panic or so where, people start raiding the stores and then it's just lights out. And it's, I mean, like you said, it's people like hunters that are still going to be like, oh, that's cool. I'm just going to go out in the forest and go get a deer.
I'll figure it out.
Well, that's actually...
like it doesn't phase you. And I think that's a good thing about learning these things too, is you don't have to spend your life worrying about whether the stock market's going to collapse or whether you're going to lose your job, because you're like, oh, if I do, I'll just, worst comes to worst, I go out in the forest and I go hunt a deer and I eat some edible plants. And, I'm confident in myself to know that I can take care of myself no matter what.
I tell you what, amen to that. I tell you what, if we do get in a lights out situation, that's the first place I'm going is the woods, just to get away from society. Because, I mean, that's what drives people to brinks of insanity, not having the commodities of your everyday life.
Oh yeah, I mean, if society was collapsing, the last place I would want to be is somewhere around a lot of people, and so. But yeah, I'd disappear into the woods and I'd feel 100% confident.
And safe, too.
I was at least safe from marauding bands of people that are coming to get me.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, straight up.
You mean that meat doesn't come in a styrofoam package?
Yeah, the fact that people get up in a, meat eaters at times get mad at me for hunting and, I can't even believe you would do that. And I just think like, my God, like, are you kidding me? Like, you just think it comes, like, you don't understand. We're so removed from even the process of the fact that we're eating these animals that were killed by somebody.
The slaughterhouses
anyway,
are
we could
brutal.
all go on long tangents about that, but that's every hunter's gripe is, I think the first time I ever killed something, I didn't grow up hunting or anything like that, but I got into survival, and the first thing I ever killed was a rabbit with a stick.
How old were you?
16.
Nice.
And I picked up a stick and I stalked this rabbit in the field because I was in a survival situation. And I chucked a stick and magically it hits this rabbit. Like, just unbelievable. Like,
that dumb luck. Shocked. That dumb luck again.
Yeah, just another dumb luck thing, and I've missed a million times since then, of course. But, within 20 minutes, I've got this rabbit on a stick over a fire, and, I just thought, like, shit, like, I could be, in 20 minutes from now, I could be over a fire, like, you just never know what's going to happen. And I think hunting teaches you that, like, your number could be up at any minute, and you just better enjoy it while you got it. And it also teaches me, like, it teaches you, I think every hunter knows this feeling when they kill something, they realize that, like, in order to, when when you're alive on this planet, you choose every single day to prioritize yourself over something else. You know, like if I'm eating a piece of steak, I chose that I'm going to live over that cow instead of that cow. And I think it just makes it really real for you where you recognize that. And then I think in a way it gives you greater empathy towards animals that you're hunting, or, you know, rather than the person that just goes to the store and buys it off the shelf without knowing where it comes from.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. What is your favorite animal to hunt?
Definitely deer. Yeah. I was actually just out in Connecticut this winter.
Oh, no kidding.
And I gotta admit, I missed a couple shots. But I hunt all with my own handmade bow and arrows, stone tips, and all that. But I shot over the back of a couple deer that spooked and jumped.
Hey, that's awesome.
So nothing for me this year.
Hey man, next time you're back home, look us up, man. We'll set you up good and definitely put some good deer in front of you.
We'll have some
That'd
fun.
be amazing. I'll definitely do that. I can't wait. I'm jonesing for next September.
Oh man, we're so lined up. We're really trying to making things happen and getting stuff, you know, on film and footage, and the best part is even if you come out unsuccessful in the sense of a kill, the whole process is just very therapeutic. So that's what we're mainly about. It's just we're blessed enough that we usually come out on the positive end of things.
Oh yeah, always. I mean, I just love, like, you know, you waking up at 5 a.m. and freezing cold and going out and sitting in the woods, and I mean, you know, birds are like landing on you and stuff like that. Like, it's the greatest. And so if you miss, you miss. You don't get anything, you don't get anything. It's a shame, but it's still worth it.
Hell yeah. Well, we'll make sure you get something for sure. That's all right. That's
I'll take that guarantee.
Yeah, for sure. That's D-Rock guaranteed.
I'm gonna hold you to it.
Let's do it then.
Sick.
Cool. So let's take a little break from the podcast a bit, and let's get to know Tom from West Coast, from California. What do you do on your free time, like your off time? Just kind of like, you know, disappear.
Pretty much the same stuff I do. You know, I'll when I have time off, I basically train myself. I consider it training, but I'll sit around and make a bow, sit around and make arrowheads, or find new projects to work on as far as that stuff goes. There's always the business side of, you know, running things and signing up new clients and stuff like that. But off time, I surf a lot, I rock climb, I throw pottery, hang out with friends, go out, that kind of thing. But pretty much a lot of my free time is spent just working on new skills, making new things, trying to learn things that I can pass down to my classes. Nice.
So always staying productive, in other words.
Staying current.
Well, not always, but yeah.
Not always. Yeah. You need a break from reality.
I am pretty good at wasting time too. But.
Aren't we all?
I think that's a survivalist in you. Because during the day, you're not supposed to work.
Energy, right?
Yeah, conservation energy. I like that. So what do you do on a daily? Well, what do you do day by day? What's your day job?
All I do is run my school and teach survival. So just got off of 4.5 months of running classes throughout the world, and now I'm back at my house, and which I am only at like probably 4 months out of the year.
Nice.
And so, yeah, it's my life. There is no day job.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's always surprising year by year. I'm shocked it's building, and I'm able to pull this off. Just because I never thought it would be, but it's luckily it's really popular.
Do you have any like big trips planned or anything up and coming or new or?
I have a class coming up, so I have nothing to do for a month, which is amazing. And then, I've got a class in Tahiti coming up in a month. And then I fly back to the East Coast, do some classes, then Chicago, then I go to Alaska, then back to the East Coast, and who knows after that. But running a bunch of just basic survival class. I have a bow making class coming up in August in New York.
Really? Can you let us know? Hopefully, past August 3rd, because that's my wedding date. But
I think it is. It's like middle of August. You might be on your honeymoon or something. But
no, I actually scheduled that just before deer season. So please let us know because we're highly interested in attending. So
that'd be great. Yeah, we spend 3 to 3.5 days. You start off with a split log stave from a tree that I cut down, and we make a fully functioning hunting bow out of it.
Wow.
Actually, I'm glad you bring that up. That was one of my questions. Can you break that down real quick for us? Like elaborate on how to make a bow?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to describe over the phone here, but
right.
I'll do my best.
Yeah.
Basically there's two things into making a traditional bow is, well, there's maybe 10 things, but the two main things. But yeah, you cut down the tree. You've got to season it for about a year. Just get to the moisture content down slowly so it doesn't check. And then you basically draw out your bow on it. But the basic two things are that trees have growth rings going up and down. And if you're carving into the wood on the growth ring side, on the outside of the wood, if you ever cut down between two growth rings, it's going to cause the bow to split open when you're pulling back on it. And so you need to make sure that from tip to tip, you've got one solid band of wood on the outside of the bow. So that basically what we call the back of the bow.
Okay.
The part that faces away from you. And that, if there's one solid band of wood there, it's going to be able to take tension when you pull back on your bow. And then the second part is just carving the inside of the wood down until when you're bending it, it's got a perfectly nice arc. And that means that all the pressure that you're built up is spread out from handle to tip on the limb. If you ever have one spot that's bending too much, that means all the pressure is going to that spot and it's going to cause it to break. So you need to spread that out by like removing wood where it doesn't bend enough and leaving wood on where it bends too much until you get a perfect arc. And yeah, once you got a perfect arc and a well-designed bow, you can pull it back. And I have bows that are 24, 25 years old and they still shoot perfectly good and haven't broken or shown any signs of cracking or anything.
Wow. And you've taken pretty large game with these bows that you've made?
Yeah, the biggest I've ever taken is a whitetail. So not like
Wow.
I've had students that built bows, never really hunted before, went out and shot, record black bear
What?
with their primitive bows. And I mean, just again, dumb luck. Like they'll tell you themselves, they're just like, yeah, I just didn't think it was going to happen. I pulled back and it worked.
They probably should have got eaten by the bear, but they got lucky and they killed it.
Yeah, exactly. Just close your eyes and give it a shot.
Hey,
Kind of
Mom,
thing.
hold my beer.
Yeah, it totally went up to me, and I'm like, damn it, I've been doing this for 20 years and I haven't shot a black bear. But yeah, tons of friends that take down elk and caribou and all sorts of stuff with the bows that we make. But for me, just a small game and then up to deer.
Wow, that's just so crazy to me. It's just awesome. I mean, obviously somebody had to. Obviously it's the same thing going back to, what do you mean meat doesn't come on styrofoam? I mean, the bows come from somewhere. Somebody one time somewhere. I mean, a lot of these tribes are still making bows, right? They make bows and spears and everything right from scratch. And these are things.
Well, that's what I find funny is people look at me all the time with these bows and they're like, "Is that going to work? Can somebody really take down game?" Or they look at a trap I show them and does that really work? And I'm like, "You wouldn't be here if it didn't work." This is what people have been doing for tens of thousands of years, or maybe with bows 10,000 years. But if it didn't work, it wouldn't be around, and it was common practice not that long ago.
We wouldn't be having this conversation if they didn't work.
We wouldn't be shooting compound bows and everything else. So.
Exactly, and I guess that's something we take for granted. I mean, we're shooting, my bow, my compound bow at this point is over 320 feet per second. It's like it's crazy. It's something that you take totally and 100% for granted. And I got into the whole trad bow thing, and then now you're taking it to the primitive bows, and that's a whole different level. I mean, I thought that I was getting set back a little bit, but no, there's even more to go backwards.
Right, and it's a cool feeling, and you're just like, shit, I just did something that 0.01% of the population has done in the past 100 years. My friend that got the black bear in California with a stone point and traditional bow and everything. And brought it to the check station, and the guy was like, "This has not happened in this state in 100 years," And so, yeah, it's just a pretty amazing feeling to know that you're bringing something back like that, but it's an accomplishment. I mean, the amount, the shot that you get and the distance and feet per second you get in a traditional bow compared to a compound bow, it's not even close, so I'll never say that they're better, but it just adds an element where you better be on point. Like, you can't slip up at all in your camouflage or your how silent you are and your tracking and everything. It really pushes your skill level to the maximum as far as hunting goes.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So how do you balance everything? Life, work, pleasure? I mean, that's everyone in the hunting industry that's involved, obviously, it's a struggle. How do you do it, Tom?
Just keep going, man. I don't know. I mean, just dumb luck, I guess. It keeps coming up. I would say just, I just think as long as you're really good at something and you put it out there, that you're going to be somewhat successful. And so I just try to be as good as possible out there and try to keep up on everything I'm doing and try to inspire people. I think one of the biggest things that I can do is just inspire people to look at what I'm doing and go, dang, like, that's just something really cool. I'd love to get into that. And I see how much you enjoy it. Therefore, I want to do it too. And I think that inspiration is what packs my class more than anything.
I think you just inspired me just in this hour that we've been talking.
Yeah, thanks, man. I mean, it's cool. Even back in the 90s, a bunch of my friends were super into this stuff, and we just were like, man, we're really into something cool here that not too many people are into. And we knew how cool it was, and kind of had a feeling that at some point it was going to explode, and it was going to be more of a household term or household thing to do, because there's just so much to it that's really enjoyable and brought like a lot of happiness and inspiration to our lives. What Survivor? You got the sound effect?
What do you think that
the
is,
Tom?
Spoken.
What's that?
What do you think that is?
Was that the Survivor theme?
No. This is our first segment. Is Ninja Tip of the Day.
Oh, Ninja Tip of the Day.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
What do you got? So, Ninja Tip of the Day. Anything outdoors? What do you got, Tom McElroy?
I was trying to think of some sort of ninja tip, and I really don't know, like, some cool ninja tip as far as... I'm sure I know a million, but it has to be, like, in the middle of a conversation. I'm like, oh, you can do this. I was thinking Ninja Tip of the Day. I taught a class to ninjas not that long ago.
Oh, no kidding.
This group of ninjutsu people, that also part of being a ninja is learning survival. And
really?
So they hired me on to do escape and evasion. So I did a class in that just because I don't know where I got into it. I think with all the military guys coming through my classes, I eventually learned a lot about like urban survival and how to escape if you're in a situation where things get messed up. And so, all right, here's one idea is, one of the things that we would do in those classes, if you get handcuffed with those little plastic handcuffs that like riot police use.
Yeah. Oh, the zip ties. Zip ties,
yeah. So there's a great way to break through with those that we were just doing in that ninja class, where instead of, you can actually kind of break them against your chest, but it does hurt. But the best thing to do is take your shoelaces apart, tie them together so they make a loop between your legs, and you put it between the plastic handcuffs, and you kick your feet back and forth with the shoelaces, and the shoelaces will heat up the plastic on these plastic zip ties and bust through them. And so that was one of the cool ninja escape and evasion techniques.
You're like an elite ninja. Like, I don't think that.
I mean, part of being a survivalist is really learning everything. Everything you can do. And so if it means hot wiring a car, then I want to learn it. If it means rubbing two sticks together to make a fire, I want to learn it.
Yeah, I think that's the best ninja tip. Like, it's an actual real ninja tip.
And it works in seconds. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, you'll sit there and struggle, and you wonder how many people have been in a bad situation because of those plastic zip ties. And
it makes sense.
It's so easy to beat.
Yeah, it makes sense. The friction and heat, and you're melting plastic, basically.
And it really is like maybe 10 seconds, and they just pop open. They've melted, and they just pop right open.
That's insane.
You're going to see me on PD Live, or what's that, Cops Live or whatever. You're going to be like, yo, there's Trev, look at him.
Running down the street. And you're like, see you later.
This motherfucker, I know
him. Oh, man, that's funny. So, Tom, you have any questions for us? I mean, I reached out to you through the good old social media, and I just really wanted to get your perspective on things, especially being an East Coast boy, and then out of everything, out of Connecticut, and now you're out on the West Coast. So I feel like you bring a total world-renowned perspective to the game. Is there anything that you have questions for us that you want to kind of touch on?
That's a good question.
He's full of those.
I guess I'm curious about one thing you were just saying about how you were trying to get, you got into bow hunting from probably, what do you guys do, shotgun out there? Or rifle, and then trying to get more rootsy. Do you see in your field that people are getting more into that? Are they pushing to get more into traditional, like how far can I push my level of like not just compound bow or recurve bow, but actually getting into, I'm going to make my own bow out of sticks and figure it out?
So I guess to answer that question is, we're actually going to a shoot in Greenwich, Connecticut, the Cobb shoot, and we were at a sportsman show, and there's a couple of local guys that are very penetrated in the archery world, and they're traditional archers. So I went to one of them and was like, hey, I really want to get into traditional shooting. What's your thoughts? So on and so forth. And then we ended up training with them. And it's just that something that we just took a leap into shooting a traditional bow, and just talking about it just made me like being like, what I'm doing is still very modernized compared to what could be done, and just bringing it back, like you're saying, is totally bringing it back to like that primitive hunting, and it's just more savage that we shoot them with a trad bow than a compound bow, and people just get away from it,
Yeah, it's such a cool feeling to be like, I made all this shit from the woods. Like, I found the sticks to put this together, and I just killed a deer with it. Like, that feeling is ridiculous. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's definitely times where I just want to fill the freezer, and I'll pull out a rifle and go shoot a deer, know? But, the challenge that it comes down to, like, you finally kill a deer, and you look back on the process that led up to that, from, like, sometimes making your own stone axe to chopping down the tree with it to shaping a bow and making the arrowheads. Like it's just a wild feeling for sure. So
I can't even imagine what that's like. I mean, I made my first duck call when I was 15 years old in high school, and I thought it was the coolest thing. And I killed my first duck with my own personal duck call that I made. But to kill a deer or even any animal at that with a weapon that you made with your bare hands, that's just something I couldn't imagine the feeling.
Yeah, it just definitely builds like your confidence, and that's just cool. It's just really cool.
Yeah,
because it's such a process, and it all comes from the earth, and it all, even up to the deer that you took, and then you take the bones from that and you use them in the next arrowheads you shoot a deer with, and it's cool. Circle of life.
See, that's why we're going backwards. I mean, we are strictly bow hunters, for the most part, but. And just getting into the trad thing and bringing it back, and now talking to you and just realizing that we've gotten very modernized with everything that we do. And there is a lot of people out there that survive off of, just their bare hands. And that's, it's an incredible thing. We go in the woods and we have, first aid kits and this and that and magnesium and there's just a slew of things that we have in the backpack to survive. And it's like, hold on a second. There's still people in this world somewhere that are surviving from their bare hands. So, like, why do we need all this?
Right.
I think that's what I took away from, it's crazy.
Yeah, and to answer your question, elaborate a little more, is the whole mission of the podcast is mainly educational platform. We just kind of bring the deer camp feel to it. And even a bigger spectrum than that is our location. I mean, Tom, you grew up here. You know how liberal it can be and judgmental is. You don't really have a platform out here to show off your kills and be happy on what you've accomplished that actually took a life, but also in turn provided. And just because it wasn't bought at a supermarket, then it's like frowned upon. So we at the same token, provide that for everyone, especially out of Connecticut specifically, but for the whole East Coast. So this way they have somewhere to come on the show, talk about what we all love. We're like-minded people, and we're, again, all conservationists. And to even go bigger spectrum than that is the only way it's really going to work is by having people like yourself on the show talking like-minded things to just bring those numbers up. And someone like yourself, that's it could be from, we were talking on the phone, we make it relatable to even like someone that's not high in education, that just school wasn't for them, still be intrigued and still learn something. For someone like you that has an education but is more savage than us, and we've never even accomplished that much education. So it's just it's bringing everyone on different playing level fields and different parts of life onto the same level of mentality, basically. So
yeah, I mean, one thing I realized in my classes is, like, if you all share the same passion, like, none of the rest of it matters. You know, I've had politicians sitting next to homeless dudes in classes, and, you know, nobody even talks about it. You know, it's like we're all interested in this one thing, and so, like, what divides us in normal life doesn't divide us when it comes to, like, the fact that we all enjoy doing this thing. And so, yeah, I think it's great, because I think Connecticut, growing up, I mean, I didn't hunt, nobody hunted, you know, and there's a huge problem with deer, ticks, and then, you know, people hitting deer with their cars, and it must have picked up a lot, because there definitely is, the deer population seems to be under more control now that when I go back to visit.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, man, I'd just go sit in the woods for 5 minutes and I'd be surrounded by 30 deer.
Yeah.
And just, you know, I'd go find where they broke up the snow to get at the acorns and go sit there, and within 10 minutes they'd all come back, and it was awesome. But I feel like it's not as much anymore, and it's a good thing, you know. It's the overpopulation of deer in the 90s was ridiculous in Connecticut.
Without a doubt. And it's something cool that I'm proud to be a part of, because we're one of the few states that aren't affected with CWD yet. And that's part of the mission, too, is population control. And,
right, absolutely.
And it takes conservation numbers. So all this positivity, man, it brings us to this next segment.
I know what's coming.
So, Tom McElroy, what rattles your antlers? What gets under your skin in the outdoor industry? Or even in general.
I knew this was coming, so I wrote it down, but I've already forgotten.
I'm going to crack a beer.
Oh, man. Let's see. You want to crack a couple? I got a big list.
Yeah.
Let's see. Good. I wrote down a couple of things that... gosh, let's see. Well, I think one of the things I get sometimes is just running into a lot of, like, egotistical survivalists that everybody out there thinks they're the greatest survivalist, you know, and you know, like we were talking about before, like, the greatest survivalist is probably a 17-year-old tribal kid somewhere. But one of the great stories I have with this, or one of the great lessons I have, is I was teaching this group of Navy SEALs. And there's this one guy that was a master chief. He had been in the SEALs for 20 years. He's built like a Greek god, and, you know, probably one of the scariest men on the planet. And one of the girls I was teaching with taught how to sew up these tiny little leather neck pouches out of brain tan buckskin.
Oh, nice.
And she taught different sewing patterns and different things like that. And I see this guy sitting in the corner, and I walk up and I'm just like, you know, Mike, he was asking me a question. Hey, how do you do the whip stitch again? And I'm showing him with a little needle and this little pouch that he's cutting fringe in. And I'm just like, you know, Mike, it's pretty funny to see you sitting here doing this, because in my mind, you're the absolute, you know, most badass guy on the planet. And he said, you know, if you want to be at my level, you always have to humble yourself before anybody that can teach you anything. And he's like, I don't care what it is. If somebody knows something I don't, I want to learn it. And that's how you get to the level that I'm at. And it just makes me laugh so many times when I run into these survivalists that are just like, oh, you can't show me anything. I know everything. I'm the best, you know? And I always think of that moment where I'm like, you know, the people that were the most badass that I've ever met in my life are the ones that have zero ego about it, because really they know how badass they are, and they don't need to talk about it because of that. And so, I I'm way more impressed by somebody that doesn't say a word about what they know or what they can do, and it just kind of comes out through them. So yeah, I think in every profession you get people claiming they're better than they are, but you know, I always think of him in that situation, and I try to remind myself to, like, you know, always humble myself before anybody that can teach me something.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah, it was a good I was 22 at the time, and so it was cool for me to be like, all right, I'm going to be more like this guy.
It set you on the right path right off the beginning.
He did, you know, instead of walking around with, you know, puffing myself up every time I accomplish something in this field.
This dude blinks his eyes, he's going to snap you in half.
Oh, no, absolutely. Like, I remember years later on, like, some big newspaper, I saw him behind the president of Pakistan, and he was his personal bodyguard, and he had this huge, you know, machine gun. And I'm like, holy shit, that's Mike. And so, yeah, it's just crazy. Yet I'm the guy that taught him how to sew a little neck pouch.
I love that.
Mike, if you ever hear this.
I should contact him and tell him what an impactful moment that was for me.
And it probably meant a lot to him, you know, honestly.
I don't even know if he knows, you know, that was something that impacted me a lot, you know, because I just kept it to myself. And I actually could contact him and tell him, so I should.
It's those crazy things in life that you look back on and you're like, wow, you know, that if only I knew now what I knew back then. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think that's what's good is, like, little things like that can change a lot about who you are. And that's why I like this podcast in Connecticut. Like, you plant a seed in somebody's head and it kind of shapes the way they think for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah. And that's the mission, man. Hey,
right,
Tom. Yeah. Amen. So, I love the fact that, for one, that you responded to my nobody ass that I am. And just to come and shed some light in the East Coast. And, you know, we've really blossomed into the hunting industry, specifically the podcast world, just following suit. If you're ever interested in expanding your podcast realm, especially with bow hunting, check out Working Class Bowhunter out in the Midwest.
Okay.
They're my good friends out of Iowa and Illinois, and again, like-minded people. They bring the deer camp feel. A fun bunch of guys. They're really down to earth, and if you wanted to get, it seems like that's the platform to get your voice heard nowadays. Is radio's out and internet radio's in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. Yeah, just write it down. I'll check it out and let you know. For sure.
And before we head out, where for our listeners, where can we find you?
So yeah, again, it's wildsurvivalskills.com. Or if you want to try me on YouTube or anything like that, you'd basically type in the same thing. I think you'd get the result. I honestly can't even tell you what it's under.
Or just look up your name.
Instagram's the same thing. I forget.
Or just look up your name, Tom McElroy. That's McElroy, correct?
That's the one.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom, for your time. And on
All
that
right,
note,
thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Stay stepping
and stay slaying.
Podcast go straight to hell. Yeah, speaking of hell, check out East Coast Bowhunting Podcast.
We keep it real on the East Coast. First of all, I'm addicted to the show.
I like that. That's cool. Okay.
Hunt, you live it, you breathe it. It's a whole different world.
Just East Coast has a little bit more of an edge and a grind. It's a fantastic thing. You guys are fucking awesome.
Well, number one is you guys like deer. I want to feel like I'm hanging with the boys.
You're the guys that showed up.
But I actually saw Jesus.
Point where it is now, where it's insane.
Let's get the fuck out of here.
Just want to get the realest people possible in the industry. And if you're not pissing people off, you're not doing it right.
Nothing forced. It's all fucking natural.